Panelul de acum va fi o discuție despre digitalizarea în legacy banking. Alături de noi este Marina Bzovi, director executiv a TIC, Aliona Stratan, deputy CEO la maib și online Nikita Kurdiani, care ne-a vorbit un pic mai devreme, deputy CEO la TBC Bank din Georgia și moderatoarea panelului, Marina Bzovi. Bună ziua!
Bună ziua și bine v-am găsit! Uite că digitalizarea instituțiilor financiare și inclusiv și în special bancare au devenit obligatorii în contextul tuturor situațiilor, dar îndeosebi în contextul secolului 21. Mă mândresc că în acest panel să avem alături de noi atât pe doamna Stratan, care cu siguranță că a venit cu o energie nemaipomenită în contextul digitalizării și chiar vă rugăm să ne spuneți unele detalii. Cum vedeți digitalizarea în sectorul bancar? Cum credeți că am putea noi să pășim mai repede în acest domeniu? Și, desigur, cam ce schimbări am putea noi să ne așteptăm în viitorul apropiat?
Bună ziua la toți! Îmi face, de fapt, o deosebită plăcere să fiu astăzi aici, fiindcă, din câte am reușit să văd în sală, multe fețe cunoscute și din domeniu, de aceea simt că ușor ne înțelegem atunci când suntem aliniați așa. De fapt, dacă e să vorbim despre digitalizare, nu cred că este cazul când vorbim deja numai despre banking, fiindcă în epoca dată, din câte deja devine cert, băncile nu mai concurează doar cu băncile. Noi suntem în etapa când între sectoare practic a fost anulată orice graniță și noi concurăm deja cu toți în același timp. Asta este o realitate pe care o vedem. Și a doua realitate este că dacă înainte băncile își făceau planuri strategice pe 3 ani, păi cele planuri strategice pe 3 ani devin inactuale deja peste jumătate de an. De aceea, trezindu-ne în fiecare dimineață într-o lume nouă, suntem nevoiți să recunoaștem că atunci când spui că you go digital, you go fast. De fiecare dată începi să înțelegi cu ce realitate nouă te-ai trezit astăzi și ce este actual. Fiindcă dacă lucrezi asupra la ceva ce era actual cu un an în urmă, probabil ai pierdut timpul. Și ca rezultat, în toată istoria asta vine pentru bănci, cel puțin, pentru băncile mari, așa cum este maib, vine realitatea că noi am fost mai puțin flexibili, fiind mari. Și iată, pentru noi, în etapa de digital, înseamnă cum ne mișcăm repede. De aceea, foarte actual, a venit recent la maib faptul că am fost impuși de situație să discutăm despre transformarea agile a băncii, care înseamnă, nu de fapt un cuvânt în vogă, dar înseamnă cum banca își transformă procesele interne pentru a asigura că time to market este foarte scurt. Adică, spunând că ne trezim în fiecare zi într-o lume nouă, iată, această lume nouă o putem captura în procesele noastre și o putem aduce clienților într-un mod rapid. Aceasta, dacă foarte simplu să spun ce înseamnă pentru noi să ne transformăm digital. Dar în rest, eu cred că este o istorie care este cunoscută de noi toți, că începem să ne gândim tot mai mult cum să fim mai aproape, mai repede și mai în trend cu ceea ce își dorește clientul nostru.
Cu siguranță. We know that Mr. Kurdiani is also here with us. However, he's virtually with us. Therefore, we just discussed with Aliona what is the meaning of digital transformation in banking and other financial institutions. What should be the first steps, and of course, what are the main requirements to do so. Mr. Kurdiani, could you please also share your views on these topics?
Hey, hi, Aliona. Firstly, I heard some words. I don't understand the language, but the words rapid and all these terms are the right terms. So I would say I agree. In my opinion,
we should stick to English then.
No worries. So in my opinion, the main thing is firstly the mindset, you know. Many companies banking companies started digitalization, as per my observation, right? And They started in a right way, meaning automatizing processes, launching mobile bankings, internet bankings, buying certain platforms. But at the end of the day, for instance, if the mindset is not changed, the metrics you're going to measure and you're going to look at and try to optimize would be still wrong. For instance, in digital, one of the main things is conversion rate optimization, right? I mean, now how many banks are looking at the conversion rates? Or, I don't know, monthly active users, daily active users, all these terms were kind of normal for other businesses, but not for banks. Now we see more and more of this kind of metrics coming in. Now, this is a mindset shift because we have been working in retail banking for many years, and we were looking at different things. For instance, how many people entered the branch versus how many sales we did within the day, right? This is not anymore that massive because now we have more people coming into our mobile banking rather than to branches. So I think the first thing is mindset. Second one is technologies and using the technologies in the right way. What is right way? Understanding the customer journey and coming from that moment backwards. Because if you are trying to automatize things, but customer doesn't see the value, then the only thing you are sticking with is the efficiency of your own processes, which again does not translate into the digital experience for the customer. So I think the second thing is understanding the customer journeys and trying to make them digital. And this then leads to many digitalization activities, right, which will be all across the company.
Thank you. You basically covered my next question, so I'll address it to Ms. Stratan. What are the 3 steps of a roadmap for a financial institution to flourish in digitalization?
First of all, nice to meet you online here. I was looking around where I can see you. Finally, I understood that you are here. Thank you for the second question. I would agree with Nika that when I started speaking about digital, first of all, you understand that the culture inside your company is mature enough to understand the needs of your customers and how you can do that. Because the question, what you do, more or less you understand from your customers, but how to do, it's a lot of job there. And the first step is to change the culture. Changing the culture, you change it, of course, mindset of your team. This is the first step. The second one, as we saw, is understanding very well behavior of our clients. Because if you don't understand what type of clients you have, or what is the structure of your base of clients and what needs they have, probably you will do some services or products, but they will not be accepted because they don't need them. At the same time, it's important when you start to do this job, doing these things, to understand in the future how these clients will change. Because if you will do something, some services, some products which are actual today, considering their today's behavior, probably you will not consider the worldwide trend. And tomorrow you will have already obsolete technology. That's why the last but not the least is understanding where the world is going and needs probably will go. And in this situation, you have a proactive approach on the behavior of need of your clients. So if to look simply at only 3 steps, the first one is changing the culture and mindset of your team. The second one, understanding what your clients want today and who they are and what behavior they have. And the last one is understanding what in the near future could be the needs and proactively work on them.
So basically you think of the past, the present and the future. And this is the 3 steps that for sure should be found in every roadmap.
You know, several years ago, it was very actual to say that you can't create the future without knowing your past. Now I am not very sure about that. However, it's important to know your past in order to understand very good your past in order to understand how you transform the future.
For sure. Mr. Kurdiani, could you please share also some of the biggest challenges that a financial institution could go through whenever we talk about transformation? Because it is a process. It might take years, it might take a couple of months, but sometimes some processes are actually going super fast, and it might affect some activities within an entity or another.
Yes, a good question. So, you know, FinTech technologies, all this transformation, that sounds very nice. And it is easy to talk about them because we read a lot of them, right? But when it comes to implementation, then it is becoming real thing. And many people are not able to translate their inspiration or transform their inspiration into reality. Now, what stands in between, right? Firstly, I think we are in the banking industry. So it is super important to have regulatory support for this transformation. And if the regulator is not up to date, then it is important to work with the regulator and try to develop things together. The regulatory sandbox, for instance, is a topic which is used by many regulators. I don't know how you guys are organized in Moldova, but basically we are co-innovating with regulator in Georgia as well as in Uzbekistan. Secondly is internal problems. Internal problems meaning that, again, I don't think it's so much culture. Culture, of course, solves it. But there are many internal obstacles of prioritization, understanding similarly the importance of topics, or having enough human capacity and ability in the company. And frequently, you know, management, because of many reasons, because of keeping the company calm, you know, or not wanting to, you know, bring somebody in because this is an external person and the culture may be kind of disrupted. I mean, all this is correct maybe and important, but at the end, when you want to transform, you have to be very critical to your own self and ask the question, am I able with myself, with my energy, with my team's energy to achieve whatever we want to achieve, or we need external help? Bring new people in, or maybe try to challenge our own selves and change our own selves, you know? And this is, I think, the second biggest obstacle. And then comes everything around budgets and spending and how much you want to allocate to this and the prioritization, but this is technical. I think if we keep ourselves on the highest level, regulatory environment and internal environment and readiness to change.
That's interesting. So basically, money are not that big of a problem as it is the human capital that a financial institution has. In a way or another, it's really important to have the right people in the right place to have that change happening. Mr. Tan, could you also share a couple of risks that you see in the process of digital transformation? Any threats? And of course, the same question, any big challenges besides having the right people in the right place? Probably you could share, Mr. Tan, maybe you could share with us a couple of risks and threats. Really, maybe some of them that you already went through or some of them that you assess that could happen.
I would like to add a little bit on what my colleague said till now related to human capital before. I don't know exactly where it relies more to risks or to challenges, but anyway, I think it's important. For big banks, as the maibs and TBCs, because I know very well TBC also, we have a lot of people which work in the old processes. And they are very good in what they are doing now. And maybe they even are not resistant to changes happening in the bank. However, for them it's very difficult to drive for new processes and to start something doing differently than before, just because probably they don't have ability to see behind the corner and to understand how world is changing. And in this case, you start to to understand that you have at the same time two challenges and risks at the same time, because you have loyal persons working for a long time in your institutions, but doing already obsolete processes which are not necessary already for the company, which digitally transformed. It's on one side. And on another one, you can't afford to have old people doing old processes and newcomers with great vision, with a lot of ideas, because it's impossible to keep them. And now, starting the most probably difficult story, that you have a running business which should develop, so the plane is flying, but you have to change the engine and to continue work with the same speed. And this probably is one of the biggest risks, because in a transforming company, keeping people motivated and engaged, knowing that you change the processes and they should adopt the new one, even if they don't resist, is very difficult for the companies. And here HR starts to work very intensively on creating the mood, looking for people, what they can do, where they can develop in the future, how we can use them in different stories in order to continue with our digital transformation. And also a new challenge we discovered, for these new processes and new transformation, you need people who understand what they want to do, with vision, with, with even character to change things. And such people are not a lot. So you have to find them in a small market as Moldova is. Maybe in Georgia it's different, but in Moldova looks not very easy to find. And in this case, when you find them, you put a lot of effort in order to motivate and to keep them in the company. Because if you start to do something great, you can't afford to lose people in the meantime. People are very important for the company. If not everything, it's the most important asset we have during digital transformation. And is important for them to be motivated, engaged, and support what we are doing, the old one and the new ones. From the point of view of risks, it's something we felt here. It's a lot of Moldovans are abroad. They know already all technologies existing everywhere, because they are everywhere already. And when you are doing something here in Moldova, the most important is not to create, not to develop something which is already old-fashioned. That's why when working on our business processes, on making a digital experience, you have to be sure that you keep the loop and you understand very well where you go and how long this your new experience you create will be modern and in trend. I don't know if I answered to all your questions, but please ask if I missed something.
Yeah, for sure you did, and definitely people do remain relevant in every process of transformation, of changing the way we think. Probably one of the biggest risks is also the fear for those people, the people who work for a long time in the company to lose their jobs, because sometimes with digitalization, some processes just disappear.
Yes, this is true. However, you can manage this part very nice in case you create at least you create something for them, or you give them opportunity to look for something else at some period. It's important to be honest and open to your employees, and to be correct in what you are doing and how you are doing. And in that case, people will support you. But again, I want to say that in big banks, this is a problem, because you have to run the business at the same time, transforming it in something new. And you need at the same time your old team doing things in the meanwhile transforming. And this is not easy sometimes.
So basically, it's an ongoing learning process while still keeping the old processes going on.
In maib, we usually say that we want maib to fly, not to run quicker.
That's true. Mr. Kurdiani, are there any technological risks associated with digital transformation? Especially, so this is probably one of the reasons why the legacy of financial institutions is that they are so rigid, they don't change easily. Is this associated to technological risks as well?
Mention two which come to my mind. One is human-driven, and the second one is basically more technological. Human-driven is basically the willingness to do things very quickly and at the same time collect lots of technological debt, as it is called. Meaning that frequently we want to transform ourselves, digitalize processes, and then we do things incorrectly or not in the most stable way architecturally, and we never come back to the things because then we do again new things and new things and new things, and that is collecting itself. And very frequently, companies are getting stuck afterwards exactly because of this, and frequently it is called legacy. Why? Because we have these legacy systems which back several years ago maybe were built architecturally not in the best way, or we did not come back to the topics on time, so they rolled over, and now it's difficult to change. So I think the biggest thing is to be very careful in terms of thinking how to do it properly, at least understanding that we are not doing it properly now, but then being diligent and disciplined to come back to this topic. And the second thing is, this was technical comment, and the second thing, more human, is, very frequently we tend to create processes, products, absolutely from our own understanding, not understanding the customer. And I'm not saying now something very popular, I'm saying something very concrete out of my daily experience. That if we think that we are smarter or more experienced than the customer, knowing exactly what the customer wants, then we are failing. And I have seen this frequently, and in technology-driven processes, this is a disaster because basically you would spend lots of your time, lots of money in terms of labor cost on developing something, then launching it to the market, and then this something being not needed at all, not used by the customers. And here, what saves us basically is, on one hand, the incremental implementation, so-called MVP approach, and before that, understanding the customer journeys, customer insights, very, very properly and carefully. And technology is very close in digital world, is very close to these things, because these things are driving the products creation process. So let's call it, there is also a methodology, a well-known design thinking process, right? So all this helps you to create proper technologies. And if the technologies are not properly created, they become obsolete from the first day. So I think these two mistakes and risks are at hand. And I have felt it on my own self, on the processes which we launched based on Space Platform, which I was presenting. So this is reality, and we have to be aware of it.
For sure. And we come again to people, but just on the other side, that's about customers. Ms. Stratan, if you want to add anything else to the thoughts of Mr. Kurdiani, please do so.
I just will add, because it was said absolutely on point, just a little bit to add that usually we like this theory that start having the end in mind. Unfortunately, on technological side, when you have a big bank with a big legacy, this is impossible, because start was done long before, and now you have only this end, and you should somehow develop with it. And I agree that at some point of time, even you are doing now very fast something in an agile way, just because you need the time to market to be in 1 month, later you have to come back. Otherwise, when your base of clients will increase, it will be much harder to come back and to correct things. So on technological side, fully agree that this not any time you can do the best you can do. Sometimes you have a very difficult solutions or decisions just in order you have to go further and develop. On human side, yes, clients, in fact, when almost every company now is telling us that they are customer-centric. Customer-centric doesn't mean at all that you love your clients and you care about them. It means that you understand what they want, and not any times you will be the cheapest bank because you are customer-centric, not the nicest in your marketing campaign and so on. Customer-centric means that you for sure understand customer journey, and you accept that your developers maybe are not right at some point and they should change. And we understood in maib that we had several services in our mobile application, and at some point we were very angry. Why people are not using them? Because they didn't know about them, and because maybe they were not necessary, but we used resources in order to develop, and we were sure that this is nice, you can use it. And now, of course, we are not doing it in an ideal way, because it's impossible to be the best, but a lot of efforts our team is placing now on understanding customers. Even when making an audit of our application, we are talking to our customers in order to see how they are doing that, what they love to do. For example, today I had a meeting with customers. I love to do that once per month. And at this meeting, I had only IT specialists, and they came very prepared from their companies. One had 7 points to discuss with us what we don't like in our app. And we put everything there because it was very funny. We thought about some of them, but not totally. And we understood that to understand your customer, probably this is the highest level of what you can do, because otherwise you will be very good in your eyes, but customers will not accept your products and services and what you propose. And fully agree with my colleague that understanding customer needs, in fact, means that you are customer-centric and you can put in life what they want. But again, there is a small risk here. In my portfolio of clients, we have people which maybe are very happy, for example, with our old internet banking. But this doesn't mean that our internet banking is the best, and we know that. So it's important when you realize what your customer wants to be sure that you are looking forward several at least steps. Otherwise, you risk to create something which is very actual for a database of clients which is today in your portfolio, but not for the upcoming or maybe people which are outside.
So a big challenge for you, and I guess it's a challenge that you have to discuss on a daily basis. Let's move a little bit on the worldwide map, and actually, Mr. Kurdiani, if you could share your thoughts on comparing the regional market to the worldwide financial market. Specifically, if you could share a little bit your views on the financial banks in your country compared to the financial banks that you can find on the global market.
Yes. So, firstly, I'll try to give you several perspectives. We, in our region, and Moldova and Georgia are representing the same region, we have a division of banks, right? Banks like maib or TBC, which are big, which are representing massive stake of banking market of its own country, and which are on a very active phase of development in all terms, in commercial terms, in digital terms, and then many other directions. And then we have the smaller banks which are not that active or they are not able to be that active. Now, so let's call local champions. If you take these local champions, and I know many banks in our region, I know banks, I worked myself in several countries. I worked in Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Azerbaijan, now Uzbekistan, Georgia. I know maib from Georgia very well. There is a term in business or economics which is catch-up effect. So, which is you are catching up with modern trends much quicker than the worldwide bigger established institutions, because you are just catching up. You are buying, for instance, the newest ATM rather than the ATM on average in European streets. This gives you the possibility to have best-in-class softwares, technological platforms, and then automatically this comes with knowledge and technical assistance, and it develops you massively. So these local champions very frequently, per my observations, are better than the average financial institution in many countries, in many European countries. I spent many years at UniCredit Group, and I should say that in UniCredit there were local champions too, but there were many other institutions which were absolutely not strong, and they were not able to resist to their local competitors. But if you take their local champions too, I think they're, for instance, I don't know, Revolut, right? I mean, it is definitely a European champion for digital banking. The way they approach things. For instance, Kaspi, right? In Kazakhstan, I don't know how much you know the case, but what Kaspi did is creating a super app going from the bank towards the super app, not the other way around, like WeChat, creating a super app and then integrating financial services. And so on and so on. So I think we should look at those good examples. We should not look at the banking industry. We should look in a broader sense. Klarna is not a bank. Yes, maybe in some countries they are starting now to get the banking license just because of local funding, but they are a buy now, pay later business. They are a payment business. This is how they position themselves. Or other businesses, it doesn't have to be in financial services. And there are many which we should look at and understand how they do business. For instance, I don't know if you have in Moldova the food delivery app Glovo, right? We have it massively in Georgia. Yeah, Spanish business. I mean, question, what can a bank learn from Glovo? I mean, for instance, service delivery time and the experience how we control your delivery, right? I mean, do we allow our customers to track their loan application? For instance, I'm sure maib has SME business too, and SME customers always complain about, when will I get my answer? Why don't we let them track the process that now your answer is on this level, and in 2 days you will for sure get the answer, meaning communicating the service level. So all this gives you the insights, and what the bankers in our region should do is basically they should open up their minds not only to the average banking industry, but to all these innovative companies and try to replicate them into their daily practice. And just to finish, I don't think we are, our region and champions from our regions are anyhow less than the average bank in Germany, for instance. I'm sure we are better. The way we do things, the way we create things, and the way, the speed we develop ourselves with.
For sure. I think we definitely, in some ways, are more disruptive than some other countries or, global banks that you can find everywhere. It also comes from the size. It also comes from the courage and from the market itself. Since you mentioned about inspiring from other entities, maybe you could share a little bit your thoughts on FinTech, FinTech startups, and how should the financial institutions collaborate with FinTechs? Should they, grow them within their teams? Should they acquire them? Is there, a successful story or a successful path that you could choose?
I think this question has been on the table for last, many years.
Yeah, for sure.
Initially we were answering on these questions that we should compete. Then suddenly it became trendy to answer this question that we should cooperate, or how is it, compete, or somehow cooperate and compete together, and all this kind of stuff. I think FinTechs are just companies which do take our market shares, but we should look at everything in terms of opportunistic way. For instance, now there is a big discussion about embedded finance, right? Embedded finance is what? That somebody is doing front-end experience better than you are, and why don't you stick your product to that platform, and those guys will sell your loan, for instance, through their own platform. I mean, previous approach was that the banks would create their own platforms in a terrible way, I mean, like massively terrible way, thinking that they would compete with, I don't know, Glovo. But why don't we provide Glovo with our own product, and Glovo will be selling it? We know from FMCG sector concept white labeling, right? This is exactly white labeling of banking services. So I think it's not anymore about cooperating with FinTechs or competing with FinTechs. This is an industry. They are in our industry. We have in our industry supermarket chains. We have in our industry postal services, which are also delivering banking and financial services. So this is not anymore the exclusive vertical of banks. That's why, I mean, this term doesn't exist anymore. I think we should just try to be opportunistic and understand how we can embed our products, and these are like really products. These are not banking services. We have several products on our menu. How to embed these products into the market where FinTechs and other players are present.
That's great. We've observed a little bit maib's experience, but maybe Mr. Tan can share future views on that.
I will add a little bit. For sure, the worst case scenario is when you ignore the existence of FinTech and you believe that they will die very soon because they will not resist and so on. That's why I fully agree with my colleague from TBC that now is the era when you look at them also as companies, which they exist, they work with you, and of course collaboration and cooperation probably is the best we can do. It's important to understand where you are better and what you can do for your clients. Even now it's very actual now that we are speaking about ecosystems and around some services or products, and you think about this seamless experience in them where banking products are embedded and you even don't feel how you use them. That's why, yes, the answer for sure, even for us here in Moldova, is that we cooperate with FinTechs. We even were partners for several hackathons where we are looking for new companies, new startups which were interesting for us, and we can work with them. This is a reality, and we consider it already normal.
Yep. We've seen that. That's why I wanted to mention. So we see my present in a lot of hackathons. This already shows a lot of openness to either to collaborate or even to share your experience. Doesn't matter if that FinTech will work directly with you, or maybe they can develop their own product, and it can be a really good cooperation in the future.
We even selected several companies which are working now more closely with us. We are exchanging somehow experience and competences we have. We continue to do that because, of course, it's important when you select somebody to work with, it's important to share the same values and views. Otherwise, it will be very difficult. That's why, yes, we selected several. And now I can't say that we have an increasingly of interest now and how it's developing, but anyway, it exists. And I think it will continue because we like to invest in new developing companies, invest in efforts. And I think this will continue because you know, a lot of nice and interesting ideas you find when you speak with new startups you find in Moldova. Our digital team is have enough courage to work with them and to test what we can do together.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your experience. And it would be interesting to also see one of the biggest trends for financial institutions that you see right now, and that would definitely change the future of financial services the way we have them now. Is there one you could share?
Interesting, interesting point. I will say what I feel. Maybe here a lot of views can be, but it looks like that in the near future, several things probably will become important. First of all, I think that loans as we are accustomed to see, will not be the most important priority in the balance sheet of the banks, because payments will start to prevail, and all payment instruments you have, because people will start to look for their banks where they have the best experience in making payments, in moving money. Probably this will differentiate a lot of the banks and will change the structure, how they are doing their business. Why this is important, I think that even Nika said, and now a lot of companies competing and disrupting banks, they are not coming on providing loans. They are coming with buy now and pay later. And this is a different story. This is more about payments than about providing loans. In this regard, probably, I suppose that will change a lot how we are doing banking, because now a lot of institutions are still speaking about how their branches looking like, what they have inside, what kind of operational model is there, and so on. But probably in some near future, we will not already look at our branches as absolutely necessary presence, because branches will remain, I suppose, more for services which you can do online, or more for representation, that you see banks there. And also, I suppose that it will be very difficult already to speak about some locally embedded only bank, because we will be more internationalized. For example, now we are speaking about our diaspora, which lives abroad, and maybe they are not coming to Moldova, but what kind of services we can have for them. So we are disconnecting from a physical presence, starting speaking about presence online somewhere. And the same probably will be actual for employees, because if you need some special experience, expertise and knowledge which is not available on your market, it doesn't mean you should look for a person and invite them to live in Moldova, because you can afford already without physical presence to work with that person and to bring experience for your customers. I don't want to say that this is absolutely the whole list of priorities, but probably these are the most important. And I would add one more. Again, I want to share the same idea as I started today, that banks already will not compete only with the banks. Barriers between industries probably will disappear, and we will start to look around, because we will be disrupted on our services, and we should do something else in order to compete probably on other markets. That's why it's funny to see already Sport Bank, for example, in what business they are, and so on. This is what I think now.
This is just the start, I guess. So digital presence, it's going to be first, transformation of loans for sure, and there are generally banks competing with non-banks and different types of institutions. Mr. Kurdiani, one trend in financial services that you see, or in your view, would definitely change or boost some changes in digitalization?
I would totally agree with what just was said by Aliona. I would just add one more, which in my opinion is very important and frequently missed, is the brand experience trend coming into banking industry also. What do I mean in that? So the banks frequently do not look at them as a brand. So if we think about Nike, Adidas, Starbucks, I don't know, Apple, of course, all those brands, every time we mention those names, we have an emotional touch with those. For instance, I personally prefer Nike to Adidas. I don't know why, maybe because I have some certain, I don't know, memories and emotional kind of touches with that brand, or Starbucks, right? When I walk around the streets with the Starbucks cup. Now, how do we bring the same concept into banking? And this is very, very interesting and important thing. And I see more and more banks using that concept. So how do I create a brand which is a experience, emotional experience, a love mark for the customer, which I call brand experience. For instance, we some time ago in the bank joined the customer experience and branding departments. And now it is called brand experience because marketing is frequently overstating what the brand can deliver in terms of customer experience. And then the customer experience unit knows exactly the customer pain points. So if you bring these two things together, maybe marketing will clearly understand the potential communication gap with the reality which we create. By this, I'm coming to the concept of which is mostly in consumer goods industry, and this is the trend that comes into banking, which is understanding the customer pain points, understanding the customer's real needs, customer journeys. For instance, again, taking the concept of design thinking, right? The first stage of design thinking process is the empathy process. And the empathy process is based on, you can use many methodologies, but one of them is asking several times the question, why? So why the customer needs something, right? Then if the customer answers, then why, and 5 times why, and then you come to the real reason why the customer really needs your payment instrument. And you know, so all these consumer goods industry specific trends which are there on the market are coming into banking, and those banks which will be quicker or let's say leading ones to implement and change the mind to that industry, in my opinion, will win. So, and this is, in my opinion, a massive trend which is not visible for everybody, and I would underline that one.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And you both talked a lot about human capital. And I want to go to tech human capital. We already see how financial institutions are fighting with IT companies for tech talent. It's not a question, I guess, it's just a statement to stay there. In Moldova, only about 1% of our population is actually engaged in ICT industry, which is probably lower than European countries where we have up to 4% of the population engaged. How do you see things working for financial institutions? Should you outsource some of the services, or are there any tech skills which you have to have them on the team, like 100%? Otherwise, it would be more and more complicated.
I think this challenge is everywhere. We have the same challenge in Georgia. I mean, big names like EPAM and others taking on the talent from the companies, and then renting this labor force, let's say, back to you. This is a common thing, right? I think we are not anyhow positioned better to compete with them. Yes, there are some minuses of the infrastructure, how people work in the ICT or those outsourcing companies, because they lack engagement, team spirit, all this kind, because we have some people coming back, and this is what they said that they lack there. However, this is not massive, so I cannot say that because of this, those functions will not work. They work, and this is a problem. Now, what we should do is we should act as those companies, and we should, if the company size allows, we should establish our own internal IT hubs. For instance, in TBC, I showed today on the presentation, we are massive in terms of the group size. In Georgia, I don't even remember how many companies we have, and all of them are technology-driven companies. and all of them need IT guys. So what we are thinking now about is creating the IT hubs our own self, having our IT hubs elsewhere. We have an office in Ukraine. We are thinking of setting up an office in Uzbekistan. Of course, we have lots of IT talent in Georgia. And then when you come to this point, I mean, you manage to create diversity of projects for IT staff, because one of the biggest insights for those who left is that they will be able to work on various projects, not always on the same loan module or deposit module or whatever banking module in the core banking system. So if you create this diversity, if your group size allows, then you should be open to think like those companies and to create the infrastructure within your own self, which is comparable. But again, this is a massive trend. I think we are in any case one step behind, and it will be very difficult to compete. But this is the way we think at this point.
Thank you. Ms. Stratan, how do you see things? Should you outsource some of the digital services, or should you get into that fight for tech skills and tech specialists?
In fact, listening what my colleague is telling, we are step back from those, from them still, because we started our journey more intensively last year and a half. That's why we are still at the beginning, and now, yes, we have a lot of services outsourced now. And this is normal for this point of time, because a lot of our applications, the software we are using, they have support from outside, and we use those resources in order to develop what we need for internal needs. However, now we have started to investing a lot in our internal resources. We will not go probably for covering all internal needs with people from inside. I think that this is, of course, not cheap, but on the second part, maybe it's not the most safe, because these people, when they are closed in your company, could be also closed-minded. That's why we are looking for having a strong team inside. As I said from the beginning, we are going now through an agile transformation. Why? Because it's impossible to take from the market very well people, very well prepared, bring them in the team and take them through whole bureaucracy you have. So it's better to create for them an experience where they can develop. They can see the result of their work, see how it develops. And these people need motivation, because they want to see how things is happening. And also they want to learn, they want to develop. That's why now we think for sure that we will have a strong IT team inside, covering critical parts of our business, and in order to ensure sustainability and development, which is minimum required. But we will work also with external providers of services on specific softwares and tasks.
You also mentioned a little bit about the skills you need to go towards digital transformation. The people with views, with some ideas. Is there any tech skills for sure? Is there anything else you would add to that list of skills?
They should be, of course, opened enough to understand things, because sometimes if you talk to a product owner, he can see one way of doing things, but if you have a good partner on IT side, he can suggest you the best way to do that. So it's and it's important to have people open enough to suggest, to help the team, to be a good team player. This is important, because otherwise your team also need to work somehow together, and also to be from with the same values and culture, embracing what we are doing inside. Usually this is not a problem. It's important to have good skills and to understand how you use them, because if you bring people inside and they are strong enough, but you don't know exactly how to use these resources, probably you will lose them, because they will become not interesting in what we are doing. Probably this one.
Yeah, Mr. Kurdiani, could you answer like one of the final questions? When and why did your company decide that you need digital transformation? Ms. Stratan already mentioned about maib. It was a year and a half ago, and we will go back on to why question.
For us, it started back in 2012-13, when we understood that we need to invest a lot of energy, money, time, efforts in the digital channels. First being mobile banking channel. Internet banking was there through kind of old instruments from late 2000s, but mobile banking was a new thing back then. And this is where we implemented so-called multi-channel approach or / omni-channel approach in a way. So I would say this was the start, like massive start, 2013, and ever since, of course, it accelerated, and then here we are. We launched a bank from Georgia to Uzbekistan, fully digitally. For instance, there was one nice fact. That we launched the banking operations, like commercial operations of the app during COVID. And we arrived to Tashkent when it was restricted to walk on the streets. So we were sitting in the conference room of Hyatt Hotel, and the IT team literally launched it from there. So we didn't even have an office. So, you know, when you come to these kind of topics, digitalization is a grand thing. And again, you have to start it, and then many ideas come, and then your readiness to do things will also come. For us, it started in 2013.
Thank you. And Ms. Stratan, why is the question?
I
Besides
will
pandemic.
go a little bit back.
Okay.
Because maib didn't started only 1.5 year ago, 1 year. It was, as Anika said, somehow triggered to be faster after COVID. But in fact, maib from the very beginning, if I remember, was through champions who started to have its own mobile application. A long time ago, they had already internet banking, and they were pretty good in that, but considering the period existed at that time and needs of a market. However, last trends happening in the world, not only in Moldova, related to COVID and this without physical presence services on, triggered a lot development of digital. And maib started long time ago, but in more intensively, it was during COVID. Why? You know, when you understand that maybe in the morning you will wake up and you will not exist, this starts to create the urgency that you need to change. And maib wants to remain for a long time with its customers, covering their needs. And needs, our clients are changing. They want digital experience. And considering that they want this, you have to transform. Otherwise, you will be like companies which do not exist anymore, like Kodak. In one morning, you will not exist. And this urgency of change arrived very strong in the understanding of our team, because nobody in maib, if you ask them why you want to change, because they said, because if not, we will not exist, and we want to exist. And it's very important that for a small bank, without the big database of clients, maybe this is easier. You decide tomorrow, you transform, nobody will understand very well how you're doing that, but tomorrow probably you will grow and so on. But when you are the biggest bank in the market, when you are the leader, in fact, and you start to transform, you need to do that, because otherwise you will lose your best clients and you will remain with something which maybe will not be actual in several years. So why? Because this is actual, this is where we are going, and we should embrace this change in order to exist.
Thank you. I guess this is the statement that we are finalizing this panel. Thank you for being with us. It was the panel of digitalization of financial institutions. I want to bring a round of applause together with you for our panelists, Ms. Stratan and Mr. Kurdiani, for all the great work that you are guys doing. Thank you.
Thank you.
And please stay with us for the next upcoming discussions, and not only here, but also somewhere here drinking a coffee. Thank you.